I'm Instructor Jason, one of the instructors here at Krav Maga Self-Defense. On Sunday, the 25th of August, 2024, a car speeding through Engadine, New South Wales, got into a crash with another vehicle. Naturally, people went in to help, but were surprised to see the driver, a male, assaulting the passenger, a female, stabbing her with a box cutter type knife. People who tried to assist were also injured, and the male inflicted self-harm using the same knife before he was tased and arrested by police. A police officer also got injured, likely while trying to arrest the male. With further information from media, the male driver was already assaulting the female passenger while driving. Uh, Pretty much sounded like a domestic violence type incident as well. Hence, reports that the car was being driven erratically before it crashed. Uh, a person that tried to help the female did not notice the male holding the box cutter knife, got attacked himself, and sustained some injuries. So, this is a good incident to examine, which covers previous topics that we've discussed. So, we can sort of consolidate all these topics using this scenario. I meant to post this last week, but I had some issues with the mic. It just cut off in the middle of my recording. I thought to get some sort of annex video and connect it using video editing, but never got the chance. So I thought I'll just redo the topic today. So, as we discussed before, the car crash happens, and you have the choice to assist or not. Just like the previous topic that we have, it's your choice, and there's no legal obligation in New South Wales for you to assist. But like we discussed before, there are ramifications on your choice if you choose to help or choose to leave. Choose not to help and leave. Once you assist, though, you may pretty much implicitly take on the duty of care on the people involved. Of course, you'll call 000, you'll ask for emergency services, and you'll do what you can to help out. And of course, like mentioned in the previous topics, if all done within in good faith and you genuinely want to help, or of course you follow instructions from 000, you'll be protected by that Good Samaritan Act. But if you choose not to, then you'll deal with some ramifications in terms of personal guilt, that I could have helped to walk away from that. But then there's all these other factors, which we'll discuss further up. Initially, people didn't realize what was happening with regard to the assaults with the knife as well. So if you're talking about a regular car crash, it's a plain, straightforward car crash, it would still be prudent for you, if you decide to help, to scan around and identify hazards while you're approaching that crash site or the vehicles, the crash vehicle, and not just rushing in. So it could be all these, maybe it knocked off some power lines. There's some active power lines in there. Is it close to water? Is it on uneven ground where you could slip down sort of some sort of ravine on the side, or the car's unstable and might fall off the cliff? All those things you got to consider or scan for on the approach, regardless anyway. And so with this, one of the people who helped, who got, I believe, was mentioned, tried to help the female right away, but didn't really identify that the male had a knife. So he himself got some injuries, was attacked by the male with a knife as well. And so going back, you come in and you see the male, going back to this actual scenario in Engadine, you see the male armed with that box cutter knife and assaulting the female. You're faced with another choice. right? Initially, you chose to help, and then you come in, you see that happening. The guy's armed, he's actively assaulting the female. Starts to be a very dangerous situation. You're faced with another choice. Do you try to do something and help at that moment, or do you wait for police to arrive, assuming someone's already called 000, or you call 000 yourself? Uh, if you do choose to assist, then you have to use whatever means to gain control of the situation and the male. You can use pretty much use deploy common objects to help you, work with others. There may be other witnesses who have also decided to help, and you might need to step in and impose a bit of leadership or take on the leadership role to guide them to work together to take control of the male and the situation, or use everyone in a way where you can put him in a stalled situation where he's not inflicting any more pain on the female, but he's just there. You're stalling him until police arrive and can respond with him accordingly, or with better tools, can deal with him with better tools. Um, so, like that, you decide to assist. It may come into evolve into a self-defense situation or a citizen's arrest situation, like what I mentioned previously. If you're trying to control the male, keep him at bay, or use whatever common objects or people around you to sort of like control him, that's a little bit like citizen's arrest already. If he then diverts his aggression towards you and other people helping, then that becomes like a self-defense. That evolves into a self-defense situation for yourself as well, because now you're the one that's under attack, and you have to defend yourself, prevent receiving um, fatal or grievous injuries from the male attacking you. Regardless of the choices, you will deal with trauma post incident. There will be these post incident things that you'll have to deal with. And of course, trauma. Um, and the degrees of trauma, it will always be there, but the degrees will arguably be differ depending on the choice that you made. If you choose not to get involved, you could be traumatized with what you've seen. You still saw that. That's still recorded in your head, and that will keep replaying, especially a traumatic image. And you might feel a bit guilt as well that you didn't help. But it depends on the situation, because you might not be alone. You might have your wife and kids with you. You might have a young family with you, and you just cannot afford to be injured by getting involved, or you have to look after them first. Um, if you do get involved and not injured, which is probably one of the better outcomes, there's arguably less trauma, but the fact that you've had to deal with this male or with other people deal with this male, you'll still have images of that aggressive male, the images of blood, him holding the weapon, maybe pointing it towards you, and all those things. That will still cause some trauma for you that you'll have to deal with post incident. You get involved and get injured, but alive. So this adds to more post incident um, things that you'll have to deal with. Your injury, you'll have to physically and mentally deal with that injury. How bad is that injury? Will it affect your life permanently? Is your your work and career dependent on your physical capability? Has this incident or injury you've received taken away some of that physical capability, and does it affect your capability to work? It might cost you your career. Um, all those things, and of course the other ones that we mentioned. There will be that trauma, and if you've received injury from this, although you're alive and maybe saved person that you meant to save, there's some consolidation in that, but there's still tremendous trauma that you'll have to deal with, maybe some regret as well, because it's now had a very sort of grave effect on you and your life. Um, and of course, the worst scenario, if the third party that you, aside from you dying, but the third party you meant to save didn't make it, then there'll be tremendous trauma and mental trauma that you have to deal with post incident, um, because of that. And if you magnify that with receiving injuries yourself, then of course that's going to be a lot of post incident trauma that you'll have to deal with. It may take quite a long time to sort of get over that, and it might be quite a struggle to deal with it as well, depending on your mental health or mental fortitude. Other post-incident consequences you might have to deal with, maybe court. You are, if you do get involved, even not, you've seen something, you are a witness. You are a witness to this incident. Specific to this incident, there's going to be a lot of charges toward that male. Domestic related assault charges, uh, malicious wounding, depending on how DV related grievous bodily harm, depending how deep those cuts are, how they prosecutors might even go for attempted murder, um, traffic related charges because of the way he was driving the car and how he's caused the crash, and if different counts of probably malicious wounding or assault occasioning grievous bodily harm, all those sort of assault related charges, because he's assaulted another witness, I believe, and a police officer as well. So that's resisting arrest, assault an officer. This is going to be a long list of charges for that male. It's going to be, I would imagine this to be kind of a big trial, a very long fact sheet, a lot of sequences that he'll be charged with. So, and everyone that's been involved will be called in to at least do a witness statement. And of course, if it goes to hearing, if he pleads not guilty, all those witnesses will receive a subpoena and they'll have to attend court. So it's not that, I believe dealing with the post incident trauma would be sort of a bigger factor compared to attending court after the incident, because court, it's just the way it is. We'll look into, I can give a rough, brief discussion on how court works and how your involvement could be at another date, but it's not as bad as it seems. A lot of people sort of like, court, it's going to take up, yes, for the day, or it might span out. It might take quite a bit of your time, but ultimately it's not that bad. And that's how our system works. That's how our justice system works. It's the only pathway to finalize the matter. Um, yeah, don't worry about that. But as well, aside from the trauma, possible injuries, there may be that sort of judicial side of things that you'll be involved with that you'll have to deal with as well post incident. Um, and there might also, this is kind of big, so it might carry some media attention. Um, it, the incident itself has carried media attention, it was all over the news. After, on the succeeding hearings, or when there's a mentioned hearing for that male to plead guilty or not guilty, we'll see if the media still covers that. But yeah, that's also another consequence as well. So media attention and an incident that you're involved with, if you did choose to get involved. So this was a pretty good incident to look at and analyze, because it does put a lot of the things that we previously talked about into play here, and all the different steps in the timeline as well. Well, so to summarize, there is that choice, right? Although you're not legally obligated to assist in New South Wales, there are repercussions if you choose to help and choose not to help. And of course, there's always post-incident trauma. The degree of that trauma will differ as to depending on the actions that you've done, what you chose to do, or what's happened and what you've seen. If you choose to be involved as well, well, most likely it can evolve into a self-defense situation if the aggressor has turned their attention toward you. And of course, it can also turn into a citizen's arrest type of situation as well. And those will carry their own repercussions depending on what's happened, what you've done. So it's all quite fluid. And after the fact, you'll have to deal with trauma, injuries if you have to, and yeah, possibly court. You'll be a witness to that. To learn more KMG self-defense techniques, train with us at KravMagaSelfDefense.com.au.